My weakness was always power. I don't mean that in an inspirational way you might find in fairy tales or the children's books of virtues. I mean it literally. I will do anything for power. Anything. And I did. I suppose my attraction to power stems from my miserable start in life. There's no point in describing it, so let's just say that life started bleak, and got bleaker as I grew older. I got bleaker. Too colder, hungrier, meaner. My only solace was my uniqueness. I knew I was different than anybody else. I thought differently, behaved differently, felt differently. I was just different. Therefore, I was special. My grandparents, who had taken custody of me following my mother's and father's respective death and incarceration, disagreed. They thought I was sick in the head, so they took me to the doctor. When all the pills and syrups proved ineffectual, they took me to the only psychiatrist in Serenity Falls. Because of my grandparents' wildly insane work schedules, the appointments were always at night, usually after the clinics had officially closed. I always came in the back through a small door that led directly to his office. I saw him for 3 years, and honestly expected to see him for many more. But I was wrong. One day, I walked into the office, and instead of the glorious, fat, resignably unshakable Dr. Horner, I found myself staring at a man with a curiosity blank and utterly hairless face.
"Good to meet you,"
he said. The voice confused the hell out of me, danced along the register between the alto and tenor. It could easily have been male or female.
"I'm Dr. Yunahawa. I'll be handling your therapy from now on."
"Why?"
"Dr. Horner,"
he said delicately,
"is deceased."
He pursued his lips.
"Suicide."
I was too stunned to speak.
"I met you here today to make the transition as smooth as possible, but I practice out of home. We'll have our appointments there from now on."
He handed me a simple white card that read, Dr. Yunahawa, MD, 26 Adonai Road. "Okay," I said. Dr. Yunahawa's little house was on a tree-choked hill several miles outside town. I don't even think the road was officially named. Rather than a street sign, he had a hand-printed piece of plywood announcing Adonai's Road. My grandfather bitched up a storm about the drive. 15 miles! 15 miles outside town! "What did you do to Dr. Horner?" he snarled. "Chased him off, you little psycho." I didn't answer. There was rarely any point in answering my grandfather at all. Though small, Dr. Yunahawa's house was curiously grand. An old-world European estate compressed into a half-dilapidated Midwest cottage. I loved it immediately. Our first appointment began with pleasantries. Then Dr. Yunahawa made me tea, rooibos, which I still love till this day, and we got down to business. "Tell me about yourself," he said. I was born in town." My eyes wandered. There was so much to see, so many colors to drink in. Colors of the deep, cold sea, indigo of the silvery blue, glassy green, and black and darkest gray. At the clinic, the old one. "The one by the river?" "Yeah." His gaze traveled over the desk. An array of bottles took pride in place to match the colors of the front room. Black, blue, gray, green. He took one of them and turned it slowly. Liquid slashed within. "That building is part of the treatment plant complex now." "Oh, cool." He watched me nearly for a terribly long minute. For the first time in my life, I felt anxious. Then he set the bottle down and folded one leg across the opposite thigh. "Tell me, do you like causing pain?" I frowned. "Do I like hurting people?" Dr. Horner's notes indicated... "No," I said. "But yes." Another long pause, stretching through the air like taffy. "I like being in charge," I clarified. Scaring people and hurting them makes them think that you're in charge. I figured that out when I was really little. My enthusiasm dimmed. My dad says, thinking that way makes you crazy. I guess that's why I'm here. Dr. Yunohawa ran a hand through his thick yellow hair. It was heavy and smooth, clipped in a pleasantly dated style that fell somewhere on the spectrum between the Farrah Fawcett and the Sonny Crockett. Shall I tell you something? His blank, feckless face practically glowed with excitement. Crazy is a label weak people use to describe people who have power. People like me. I waited. And people like you. You aren't crazy. You're just powerful. Excitement flared and coursed through me, lightening my veins with pleasant fire. I knew it. My granddad says, your granddad, he snarled, is weak. The weak resent the powerful. Do you know why I took your case? He crossed another leg and leaned forward. His eyes practically blazed like someone in love, or someone whose dream is about to come true before his own eyes. Why? I want to make you strong as me, or even stronger if you are worthy. Those wild blazing eyes paralyzed me. A small smile spread over his face. Are you? I am, I answered. He picked up the bottle again. This, he said, is medicine. I created it right here in Serenity Falls. It will help you reach your full potential. He slid the bottle across the desk. I looked at it with doubt. I am a broken person, but not a stupid one. Not now, not then. I knew that all this was wrong. But did I care? How do I take it? I asked. Here in my office, 26 doses, 1 per month, for 2 years and 2 months. What does it do exactly? The doctor smiled. It makes you powerful. Take it. I unwrapped the bottle and drank it. It was just water. Clean, terribly cold water. Part of me was furious, but part of me was intrigued. You're not a shrank, are you? I am a specialist, he responded. For special people. Are you special? I didn't answer. After a long moment, he smiled. Good. I have an assignment for you. Think of it as homework. Okay. Envision yourself as powerful being every night before bed. Okay. He watched me skewedly. That'll do. We're done for tonight. We'll have our next session in a week's time. I'll be honest, I soon grew to love Dr. Yunohawa for his stability, his understanding, his acceptance, and of course, for the praise he lavished upon me. Our sessions always followed a script. Pleasantries, rooibos, and long conversations about power, potential, and weakness. Every fourth appointment, I drank a bottle of the doctor's medicine water, after which he would give me a homework assignment. These ranged from meditation to other or darker activities, things like exerting power via emotional means, such as manipulation. And of course, through the physical means as well. It wasn't difficult. Everyone, including my parents, were already terrified of me. I'll spare you the details. I'd rather not share the secret of my success, but with the doctor's guidance and medicine, I whipped my grandfather into shape within days. Others followed, teachers, children, neighbors, and I almost killed a man. A sniveling, weak piece of garbage named Calvin Times. I had so much power over him, he refused to press charges. It was phenomenal, unreal,
intoxicating. Here I was, a scrawny little piece of garbage from the wrong side of town, controlling every incineration in my daily life with almost no effort. I was powerful thanks to the blank-faced doctor and his magic water. After the 9th dose, Dr. Yunohawa asked,
"What is the most powerful thing you can think of?"
"Being in charge of everything."
"You misunderstand. When you think of power, what comes to your mind's eyes? That is to say, what is the most powerful thing?" "Powerful,"
he repeated.
"Omnipotent, almighty."
That jagged my memory. Grandma loved going to church, and she sure loved praying for Father, God Almighty, to save her crazy grandson. God, I guess?
Yes.
Dr. Yunohawa's eyes blazed again.
God is power. God is life. Life is also water.
He slammed the empty bottle on the desk.
Water is life. Life is God. God is power. I engineered God and put him in water. And these little bottles right now, just for you.
He smiled.
One day, that will change.
So you're going to turn everyone into me, I thought, but didn't say.
No, not everyone is powerful. My medicine only works for the powerful.
A small, satisfied smile spread over his face.
And the deserving.
I considered this for a long while. He picked me up because of my innate power. His medicine, his therapy would make me more powerful, enhance me, perfect me. But I wasn't the only one. I wasn't actually special. There were others like me. Many others. I didn't like it. Not at all. But I had no choice. It was better to one of the few than one of the weak. So once again I said, "Okay." Perhaps the doctor sensed my deception. Perhaps he simply changed his mind. Whatever the reason, when I returned for the next week's appointment, he was gone. The house was emptied and everything but the remaining bottles arranged in a box with a note that read, "Remember to take your medicine. Remember to be powerful." As I stared at the bottles, the last of my excitement, of my warmth, died. My bleak life grew bleaker and darker from there, reaching the depth of the emptiness I could hardly comprehend. In my mind's eyes, I saw my soul as the Wisconsin's winter's landscape, cold, hard, and bitter, with the occasional gleam of cold winter sun on valiant ice. One of those gleams was Eleanor. I met her 6 months after my last dose of medicine water. I was 18. Our relationship was doomed from the start. I was too cold by then, too broken and too vacant. I was like a shark, endlessly moving, endlessly searching for something that might provide happiness. But I'm just like my parents. I don't feel happiness. I only take it. I took Eleanor's. I broke her into pieces, relishing the way the light in her eyes dimmed a little more every day, enjoying the new delicate lines slowly etching their way into her young face, waiting with the hated breath of her joy, her softness, to melt away, revealing the cold, broken, genuine being thing beneath. That's something no one wants to understand. Happiness is an illusion at best, a delusion at worst. Happiness isn't real, but a power is. Forcing someone to acknowledge this truth is power in its own way. I held power over Eleanor, but it was trivial power, useless, worthless, boring. So I left her. Worthless though it was, I didn't like relinquishing my power, so I stretched out as long as I could by impregnating her first. I pretended to be overjoyed. I pretended to change. I joined the military because the military is the best prospect I had. It was for us. I lied.
for our baby. I waited for the light in her eyes to fully rekindle before snuffing it out for good. I hate you, I said, and I hate it. I pointed at her stomach. She recoiled, eyes so wide she looked grotesque. I am doing this to get away from you. If you come after me, I forced a carefully modulated chuckle. Remember Calvin Timms? She stared at me like a tortured deer caught in the headlights. That was nothing compared to what I'll do to you. I fully believed Eleanor died that day. Sometimes it made me proud. Sometimes it made me feel uncertain. But mostly, I didn't think about it. The power I created and exerted over her was complete, but ultimately useless. And compared to the power I created, enjoyed in the military, utterly unforgettable. Just as I spared the details of Dr. Yunohawa's assignments, I will spare the details of my tenure in the military. Suffice to say, I found it incredibly easy to create and exert power, especially on the deployments. The military is full of people who are intentionally broken down and rebuilt to follow a leader. They love leaders. They just need the right one. I molded myself into the right one. I even managed to operate under the radar, which made my power all the sweeter. It was ethereal, beyond all imagining. I would have given anything for Dr. Yunohawa to know how far I'd come, to see the pride in his face. Sometimes I could almost feel his medicine coursing through me, cold, clean, clear. I could have gone on forever, and probably would have if it weren't for a weak link. The weakest people resent the strong. And a very weak piece of garbage brought my empire down. Through the manipulation and influence, that is, through the power and influence I so meticulously cultivated my entire career, I narrowly escaped court-martial. I received a dishonorable discharge and drifted home. I quickly discovered that my power in Serenity Falls had over-evaporated. No one remembered me. I passed Eleanor in the streets a dozen times, and she doesn't even recognize me. To my chagrin, she looked happy, tired, but fulfilled. Her smile was cautious, but bright, her step light. I hadn't snuffed her out after all. This confounded me. I followed her around town for days. I soon realized that a child, our child, had undone all my work. Clearly, this made me weak. Dr. Yunohawa would have terribly been disappointed in me if he knew. Clearly, this made me weak. Dr. Yunohawa would have terribly been disappointed in me if he knew. This realization crushed me. I withdrew, losing myself in frozen winter landscape within my heart. It was safe in there, empty, controllable, smooth, unbroken, unfeeling ice. Then, not very long ago, I got an email. The sender was a boy, a local student with my last name. A boy, it turned out, who was looking for his father. "Is your mother Eleanor?" I wrote back, even though I knew the answer. "Yes," he responded. And there it was, an avenue, a plan to rectify my mistake. We exchanged emails for a while. I pretended that I had no idea that he even existed. It was simpler than the truth. Soon enough, we made plans to meet. I emailed him back with my phone number. Shortly after, my telephone rang. "Hello?" I asked, expecting my son. Instead, I heard a high, steady voice that danced along the register between the alto and the tenor. Dr. Yunohawa. "I heard you'd come." The ice in my heart broke apart, revealing a volcano beneath. Confusion, joy, and love erupted, rendering me speechless. "How?" Dr. Yunohawa chuckled. "It wasn't difficult. I've been following your accomplishments, and I'm proud, very, very proud of you." My heart swelled with excitement and happiness. I'd done it. I'd made him proud. "Will you visit me?" he asked. "Of course." We met by the river, near the water treatment plant. I drove up and saw him standing on the shore, limned in cruel moonlight. He barely changed, same hair, wig-like in its dated perfection. Same, smooth, androgynous face. He smiled. Tears glittered in his eyes.
You seemed so powerful, almost perfect.
That single word punctured my excitement. Almost?
Almost,
He repeated.
yeah.
He reached into his coat and extracted 2 identical glass bottles. They caught the moonlight and shone like silver. For a surreal moment, I was a teenager again, bemused and dreadfully curious about my new psychiatrist.
You need 1 more dose.
Then why are there 2? He pressed on into my hand.
Drink.
It was cold, it stung my mouth and made my teeth hurt. It was glorious. When I finished, he said,
I have an assignment for you. A last bit of homework.
I watched him silently. Moonlight shafted through the wind-driven clouds, dappling him with the silver light and darkness.
I need 1 last thing from you. Or rather, you need 1 last thing for me from you. A final act to establish your power. Once you have done it,
He gave the second bottle a brisk shake.
you'll get your final dose.
He explained that the powerful gods, truly great gods, must spill blood, and taking off the life is great power. Transcending human bond is another, perhaps greater power.
Prove to me that you are strong. Prove to me that you are worthy,
The doctor said.
Take the life of your son.
Smugness and pride seethed. I'd come up with this plan on my own. Killing my son would serve a dual purpose. It would show Eleanor that I was still in control, and it would propel me to the perfected state that Dr. Yunohawa had always wanted me. The doctor mistook my proud silence for doubt.
If he's strong, he'll survive,
He promised.
If he's not strong, he won't. And would that really be a tragedy? The world doesn't need more weakness.
Of course, I said. I'm not heartless. I spent several hours choosing the way my son would die. I settled on drowning. The river would be painfully, paralyzing cold this time of year, perhaps cold enough to stun him, and while drowning itself isn't pleasant, the body releases one last burst of chemicals that you put into you in a state of bliss that seemed appropriate. I could give my son joy. With that in mind, I scheduled our reunion at the falls. It was easy to convince him. I lied and said it was where I had taken his mother on a first date. He wanted to bring his mother. The ice in my heart cracked again, once more revealing that the volcano, Eleanor, the first woman to feel the full force of my power. Except she hasn't. She'd escaped with our child, so she escaped with her heart. All my work undone. Of course, I said. My son said there might be a few minutes late because Eleanor's work schedule was, so I offered to pick him up. She can't follow when her shift is over, I said. The night I finally met my son was frozen and beautiful. He looked like me, but smaller, with his mother's hair and nose. We drove to the trailhead near Falls. He was too shy to look at me for long, but a few times I caught his eye. I saw hope, bright, profound hope. We got out of the car and hiked to the falls. They gleamed under the moon, a vast, jagged palace of ice and diamond. We stared at the frozen falls for several long minutes. Soon, my son began to shiver. I put my arm around him and drew him close. His chest hitched. I pretended not to notice, but disappointment bloomed into my gut. Crying already? I thought. How weak of him. Once he'd gotten himself under control, I asked, "When is your mom going to be here?" "Not for at least an hour." My mood soared even further. "Do you want to wait in the car where it's warm?" Trembling, he blurted, "Why did you really leave?" Irritation swept over me. I withdrew and looked over at the falls, carefully choosing my next words. But why? I was wasting time. I was being weak. "I lied earlier," I said. "I did not know you existed before today." "Then why did you—" "I wasn't ready. I loved your mother," I lied. "But I didn't want to have a family yet. I'm sorry." My son shrugged. Then he spoke. His voice was thick. "Were you really in the army?" "I was, and a diplomat, and a doctor." I laughed. "A diplomat? A doctor? Oh, Eleanor." "But you really did love Mom?" he persisted. "I still do, more than anything," I lied. "That's why I'm here, but I'm not still ready to have a kid. I don't think I'll ever be." The brokenness in his face made me feel an entirely unique kind of power. I put my arm around him and pulled him close, then I stepped towards the railing. "It's only going to be cold for a minute. After that, you won't even feel it. It'll just be like drifting off to sleep." He began to shrug. "I want to go back to the car." "Everybody wants something," I said, "but not everybody is willing to do what it takes to get it." I threw him over the railing and into the frozen river. He hit the ice with a shudder, including a crack. The ice began to break under his weight, and water pulled him under. He struggled and fought for several minutes. I willed him to give in, to experience the last burst of ecstasy and die. For a while, he fell still. I waited another moment just to be sure. Then I turned and left. When I got into the car, I felt a curiosity light empty. Not all the godlike, not all powerful. In fact, with each passing minute, I grew anxious, then afraid. Then, for the first time in my life, I panicked. I sped out of the doctor's house, and plywood sign had long since disappeared, but I found it anyway. It was dark, with broken windows and dry rotted siding, but I went inside anyway. Dr. Yunohawa was waiting for me. The relief I felt was exquisite. I envisioned the doctor's final dose, no doubt nestled in his coat. He would give it to me, and I would be complete. I would be fully powerful.
"Is it done?"
he asked. I nodded.
"Do you feel powerful?"
His face was blank, colorless porcelain in the shadows, a disembodied mask. Fear engulfed me. My skin began to crawl, even as relief coursed through me. He understood what I was feeling.
"No."
He smiled. The smile is something I will never forget, small and prim and terribly white.
"Then I'm afraid you aren't worthy. All powerful. I was wrong. You are weak."
And with that, with his disapproval, with his disappointment, with the rejection by the only parent I ever had, a lifetime of panic and terror descended upon me. It was a living nightmare. Hours and hours of unimaginable horror. When I finally came to my senses, it was morning. Frost covered my shoes and clothing, and Dr. Yunohawa was gone. I left town quickly, but not before learning that my son was still alive. I hadn't killed him after all. I wasn't special. I was a failure. All that work, all those years of Dr. Yunohawa's medicine and therapy, and I still failed. I'd do anything for power, and I did, but it wasn't enough. I suppose nothing is enough when you are as weak as I am.